We're just over 6 weeks away from the midterm elections. It's not about which party gains control of the House and the Senate. It's about the fragility of our democracy and whether our country goes down the road of truth or lies. According to 538, 60% of voters will have an election denier on the ballot this November. From now until Election Day, each weekend, we're going to examine where and how democracy is at risk in this deeply consequential political season. Today, we're looking at Pennsylvania. Let's start with the Senate race there. The current Lieutenant Governor, John Fetterman, is the Democratic candidate. He's going to face off against Republican opponent, the retired surgeon and TV personality, Dr. Mehmet Oz. Dr. Oz has been endorsed by former President Trump. He's taking a page from his playbook, saying one thing to one group of people, but forgetting that there's evidence that entirely disproves it. For instance, Oz's campaign recently said he's pro-life, but believed in exceptions for, quote, rape, incest, and the life of the mother. Last May, Oz was caught on tape saying abortion is, quote, still murder, no matter what stage the procedure is completed at, because he believed life starts at conception. Oz also shocked some Republican supporters when he said he wouldn't have opposed the certification of the 2020 election if he were in the Senate. But last April, he said, quote, we cannot move on from the 2020 election, suggesting that he believes the election of Joe Biden was illegitimate. And if you're wondering about his character, in addition to his politics, Oz and his team have been mocking his opponent, John Fetterman, after Fetterman survived a recent stroke. One Oz staff member saying, quote, if John Fetterman had ever eaten a vegetable in his life, then maybe he wouldn't have had a major stroke. All right, let's look at who's running for governor in Pennsylvania. Democratic Attorney General Josh Shapiro is running against the Republican State Senator Doug Mastriano. Mastriano's vision for Pennsylvania veers so far right that many influential members of his own party have actually jumped to the opposite side of the aisle to endorse Shapiro instead. Mastriano has been publicly backed by former President Trump, the CEO of the far-right social media website Gab as well, an online breeding ground for white nationalists and users who are banned from other platforms, including people like the man behind the Tree of Life synagogue attack, the murders in Pittsburgh. Mastriano is such a huge fan of Trump that he used thousands of dollars in campaign funding to charter buses to see Trump's speech in person on January 6th. He sued the January 6th committee to try to avoid testifying about his experience that day. He has vowed to appoint a Secretary of State and give them the, quote, power to make the corrections to elections, the voting logs, and everything, end quote. He's also promised to decertify every voting machine in the state. Mastriano is also prepared to encroach on bodily autonomy. In an interview in August, he said that it's, quote, disgusting that the current governor, Tom Wolf, wants to ban so-called gay conversion therapy. And during a primary debate, Mastriano said he would support a ban on contraception. Clearly, he doesn't support abortion, not even with exceptions to rape, incest, and the health of the pregnant person. And one last fun fact about Mastriano. He's a retired Army colonel and a former employee at the Army War College. As you can see in this faculty photo, he's the one all the way on the left wearing a Confederate uniform. The district he represents includes Gettysburg, the site of the battle where the tide of the Civil War turned against the Confederacy. That's a lot. Joining me now is Josh Shapiro. He's the sitting Attorney General of Pennsylvania. He's also the state's Democratic nominee for governor. Josh, good to see you again. Thank you for being with us. I'm mostly struck by the idea that this polling that indicates that 538's information that says that election deniers will appear on the ballot for 60% of potential voters across the country. This is not tricky for Pennsylvanians. Doug Mastriano has made the big lie his entire personality.
Yeah, without question. He's also made tearing down our democratic institutions the focus of his campaign. So I'm losing my voice. We've had so many great rallies across Pennsylvania. I apologize, Allie. But listen, the bottom line is this guy has talked about taking away our vote. He's talking about taking away the right to marry who you love, talking about taking away bodily freedom. Every single day, it's about taking away a fundamental freedom from Pennsylvanians. We're pushing back against that. We are the candidate and the party of freedom. We are the ones who are going to defend our democracy, and we will defeat Doug Mastriano on November 8th.
He's promised to put a Secretary of State in place who would intervene in elections. Obviously, that means different things to different people. To Mastriano's people, that means, the 2020 election, he would have changed the results. And by the way, that would have meant that Joe Biden wouldn't be president. Pennsylvania is actually where democracy could die in November. What would it be like if he became governor and put the Secretary of State in place to do the things that he's talking about?
Well, this is super dangerous, not just for Pennsylvania voters, but all across the nation. So hear me on this. We're pretty unique here in Pennsylvania in that the governor appoints the Secretary of State and basically has complete authority over certifying a winner. Now, in the past, Allie, look, if you ran against Nicole Wallace, she got one more vote than you did in Pennsylvania, she'd win the election, but not in Doug Mastriano's Pennsylvania. He has made clear that he is going to review the logbooks, the voting rolls, and decertify voting machines if he doesn't like the outcome, if he doesn't like the will of the people. Think about the chaos that would bring, not just to Pennsylvania, but the rest of the nation. We are, of course, the swingiest of swing states in the nation. We oftentimes are the state that puts a presidential candidate over the top. That dilutes the votes and undermines our democracy in every other state if we don't have a free and fair election here in Pennsylvania. And listen, Allie, this is the birthplace of our democracy. This is the place where it all started. And I believe here in Pennsylvania, we have a unique responsibility to defend our democratic institutions and the very democracy that all of this progress we need to make is laid upon.
For the record, if I were running against Nicole Wallace, I would probably vote for Nicole Wallace. But I get your example. You have gained a remarkable support from highly prominent Republicans in your state. Talk to me about that. I mean, I was in Pennsylvania on Friday and was talking to Republicans who said, yeah, I'm having like a fundraiser for Josh Shapiro. What is it about either you or Doug Mastriano that has caused Pennsylvania Republicans to support you?
Well, first off, I was proud to be the unified choice of the Democratic Party. I faced no opposition in the primary. The party came behind me. And what we have seen in the months since is that folks here in Pennsylvania are ready to take off, the red jersey and the blue jersey and wear the Pennsylvania jersey because they recognize just the stakes are so high. The contrast couldn't be clearer, and that we each have a responsibility to defeat the kind of dangerous extremism that Doug Mastriano brings and defend our democracy and create real opportunity for our school children, opportunity to bring safety to our communities, opportunity to grow our economy and reduce costs on Pennsylvania families. Folks recognize this is a moment where we have to come together. So while I'm obviously proud to have the support of the Democratic Party, I'm incredibly proud to have Republicans and independents coming across party lines and supporting me. From former George W. Bush Homeland Security Secretary to Republican county commissioners here in Pennsylvania. Folks are coming together because they recognize we have to defeat this dangerous extremism of Doug Mastriano and come together in order to create opportunity and get meaningful things done here in Pennsylvania.
So last weekend, we were talking to Katie Hobbs. We were looking at Arizona, and you and Katie Hobbs face a similar situation in that you're running against people who are election deniers and liars. How do you handle that? Do you fact check Doug Mastriano, or does fact checking Doug Mastriano just give air to the nonsense that he talks about?
I focus on trying to make the case, both the positive of what I'll do to defend our democracy, protect our freedoms like the right to choose, and create opportunity for especially our children who don't often have opportunities, especially in some of our rural and urban communities. I find that, Doug Mastriano is someone who kind of walls himself off from most people here in Pennsylvania, won't talk to the media, won't talk to people who don't think like him, worship like him, pray like him, marry like him. These are, he is sort of insular in his approach. And I find that I don't like wasting a whole lot of time talking about him, but rather focusing on my positive vision for how we can bring Pennsylvania together and get meaningful things done.
Josh, good to see you again. As always, thank you. You've been a great friend to our show for years, and I appreciate the fact that you are always willing to come on and talk, whether it's to people you agree with or not. Josh Shapiro is Pennsylvania's Attorney General and the state's Democratic nominee for governor.